Hello, this webinar is about making the invisible visible, fear and disclosure of sexual orientation at work, and it's presented to you today by Chuck Campbell and Hiral Kamdar. In this article, stigma theory was used to examine the fears underlying the disclosures of gay identity at work. Using a national sample of 534 gay, lesbian, and bisexual employees, this study examined the antecedents or past experiences that affect the degree of disclosure of a gay identity and work, and for those who had not disclosed, the factors that influenced their fears about full disclosure. Stigmas are defined as socially undesirable, deviant, or repulsive characteristics that discredit or spoil an individual's social identity. There are generally two types of stigmas. You have visible stigmas such as race, gender, disabilities, or invisible stigmas such as sexual orientation, mental illness, or health conditions. Stigma theory precisely focuses on social identities that are discredited and devalued within a social context and seeks to explain the interpersonal and psychological effects of devaluation, marginalization, and discrimination in social relationships. Stigma theory offers a more precise theoretical resource for diversity and LGBT research because it tailors general theories of human behavior to incorporate critical aspects of human diversity and permeate social relationships in the workplace. The article proposed 4 hypotheses. The first 3 hypothesized that LGBT employees with heterosexual supervisors, a larger proportion of heterosexual coworkers, a perception of past discrimination, unsupportive coworkers, or unsupportive supervisors would lead the employees to fear more negative consequences by disclosing and disclose to a lesser extent in the workplace. The last hypothesis suggests that employees who fear more negative consequences of disclosing will have increased psychological strain at work and a less positive work environment, career attitude, and career outcomes. Along with the hypotheses, they also proposed a couple of research questions. The first thing they wanted to know was amongst the LGBT employees that did have some past experiences of discrimination, which one of the antecedent variables had the greatest impact on their fear of negative consequences and on the degree to which they would disclose their sexual orientation in a workplace. The second question aimed to find out if LGBT employees who disclosed more at work actually reported less psychological strain and in turn had a more positive work attitude and career outcomes. Before we take a look at the findings, just a little bit about the research methodology. They actually sent surveys to members across 3 national gay rights organizations. A total of almost 3,000 surveys were sent. They received responses from 534 people, giving them a response rate of 30%. And in these responses, there were 11 professional sectors represented, 6 different ethnicities represented, and as can be seen here, they were highly educated, and the jobs also were of various types, such as professional, managerial, sales, and service. So let's take a look at the hypotheses again and what they actually found. They ended up proving most of what they had guessed. Having heterosexual supervisors, a greater proportion of heterosexual coworkers, a lack of supportive coworkers, a lack of supportive supervisors, and perception of past discrimination all actually did lead employees to fear more negative consequences from disclosure. On the other hand, they found that those with a greater proportion of heterosexual coworkers and unsupportive supervisors or coworkers actually led them to disclose to a lesser extent. So what was it that they weren't able to prove? As can be seen here, they found that LGB employees with heterosexual supervisors are not any more likely to disclose to a lesser extent than if they had a homosexual supervisor. They also found that perceptions of past discrimination did not lead to less disclosure. In fact, they found the opposite to be true. LGB employees who had perceptions of past discrimination were likely to disclose to a greater extent than those that didn't. As for their last hypothesis, it was supported on both accounts. LGB employees who fear more negative consequences at work, in fact, do show increased psychological strain at work, and they do end up with less positive work environments, career attitudes, and outcomes. So for their research questions, they were able to get some answers. Their first finding, they found that having supportive supervisors and coworkers had the greatest positive impact on an LGB employee's fear of negative consequences of disclosure. Their second finding showed that employees who had gay and lesbian coworkers or just supportive coworkers had the greatest impact, positive impact, on the degree of disclosure. They also found that employees who disclosed to a greater extent reported a more positive participation in their work environment.
The first limitation is relevant based on the type of study that was completed. Because the study was distributed once to the sample population during a point in time, it does not capture how these groups of individuals evolved over time, as they may or may not have disclosed their identification within the workplace. Because of this, the results tell a limited story on directional relationship. This information is also self-reported and is an interpretation of each individual based on the experience, which could lead to misinterpretation. The next limitation is around the response rate, which was around 30%. Based on the study, it does not give an opportunity to analyze the results, but it could be telling that 70% of the individuals solicited did not respond to the survey. The next limitation is around the population who was solicited. Members of 3 gay organizations were solicited, and the population who responded were considered educated, as close to 18% held doctorate degrees, 28% had masters, and up to 39% had undergraduate. Because of this group's solicited, it is possible that members of a gay organization would be more likely to disclose at work than employees who don't identify with these types of groups. It could also mean that the results may not be generalized to the workers of lower social, economic, or education levels, or to those who hold blue-collar jobs. For employees who have not disclosed at work, the study showed an overwhelming negative relationship with their career and workplace, as well as general well-being. Individuals who reported more fear of negative consequences of full disclosure had less positive job and career attitudes, received less promotional opportunities, and reported higher physical stress-related symptoms. The next thematic result that can be drawn from the results is that concealment may be necessary, and an adaptive decision is made depending on what type of environment you work in, especially if the environment is considered unsupportive or hostile. This represents that it is necessary to find a balance between social support and psychological stress factors for disclosure versus the potential negative consequences. The third implication drawn from the result is that any individual who reported through the survey that he or she has incurred negative experiences, as Hiral talked about earlier, did not dictate the likelihood that they wouldn't disclose in the future. In other words, even with a negative experience, it did not stop them from disclosing in later roles. Based on these implications, the most important thing an organization can do is provide a supportive environment for employees by allowing and encouraging them to bring their full selves to work. Thank you for listening to our webinar. We hope you found this research as intriguing as we did. Next, we ask that you take some time to review 4 questions and respond accordingly. We look forward to an engaging discussion. Thank you.